BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. BlackBoxNed88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. And just a quick reminder, every Monday is Zodiac Mondays. Wednesday is an Ask Me Anything. That's an AMA, so please drop your questions below for things that you would like discussed here on the show. And Friday is an Anything Goes. Any subject is fair game, mostly talking about true crime, serial killers, the Zodiac Killer, but any subject is welcome. All right, so please share some ideas in the comment section about what you would like to hear about on this channel, and let's get started. Okay, hello everybody. Today is Monday, another Zodiac Monday. Welcome to the show. This episode is coming out during the early AM hours of July 5th, so you might hear a few more fireworks still going off here in West Virginia, but I hope that won't cause any trouble. It's mostly died down by now. And this is going to be a very big episode because not only is this going to be the conclusion of the book discussion, Zodiac Killer, Just the Facts, it is also going to be the AMA, the Ask Me Anything, where I respond to your questions and comments. And the reason for that is I will be going on a brief BBOR hiatus for the next 2 weeks or thereabouts, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. And I will actually still be online doing a new channel called AstroPsych 400 that is going to be talking all about astrology, personalities, and similar subjects. There might be one final BBOR episode coming out just doing like a promotional thing for the channel, but I didn't want to start that video series until I completed the Zodiac Killer book discussion. And it's just going to be a set of 12 videos that are going to talk about each one of the star signs, like each one of the signs of the Zodiac, yes. Talking about the Zodiac Killer got me curious about astrology, so that's going to be coming out sometime later this week. And for now, let's get to the material here about the Zodiac Killer and the murder of Paul Stine. First, I would like to say there's another reason for doing the AMA during this episode. The sections in the book Zodiac Killer, Just the Facts about Paul Stine are very small compared to Blue Rock Springs and compared to Lake Berryessa. But I would like to begin with something here on page 276. Paul Stine was the final murder victim in the canonical Zodiac crimes that began on December 20th of 1968 and ended on October 11th of 69, and this is what we have on page 236. Paul Lee Stine, killed October 11th, 1969. It was a Saturday. The time of the attack was approximately 9:55 p.m., and the place of the attack was the northeast corner of Washington and Cherry Street in the Presidio Heights neighborhood of San Francisco, California. The method was cab driver Paul Stine, age 29, was shot once in the head at point-blank range. The weapon was a 9mm semi-automatic pistol, not the same 9mm used in the Farron murder. There were 3 witnesses from a house on the southeast corner of the intersection. So, there are an enormous amount of bombshells going off just in that little introduction here on page 276. Firstly, this is just the passing of the 4th of July, so a big rest in peace to Darlene Ferrin, who was murdered on July 4th. I was just talking about the fireworks, and rest in peace to her. Rest in peace to Paul Stine, as well as the other Zodiac victims, of course. But something else, though. Not the same 9mm used in the Farron murder. What does that mean? Some people look at that and think that this is evidence of the multiple killers theory. I have to say that that's one of the reasons why I got curious about the multiple killers theory, and the Stein murder is definitely something that made me thinking about it, because when you have Lake Herman Road and Blue Rock Springs, those two are very similar crimes. They are both committed by gunshot. They are both dealing with a man and a woman who are in a car, like at a lover's lane, more or less. The ages of the victims are different. Darlene Ferrin and Mike Michaud, who were shot at the Blue Rock Springs attack, were older than David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen. David Faraday was 17 years old, and Betty Lou Jensen was 16 years old, but still relatively similar. there are definitely some differences that we can go through with those two crimes, but you can hear all about that in the other episodes in this book discussion: Zodiac Killer, Just the Facts, the Lake Herman Road Murders, and Blue Rock Springs. With the Stein murder, though, he was shot with a 9mm that was not the same as the one used in the Farron attack. You'll also go through many sources about the Zodiac Killer and find that Paul Stine was murdered with a .38 caliber pistol. Everything here says that he was shot with a 9mm, and this was even relevant to Gareth Penn's theory. He talked about this in Times 17, the book on the Zodiac Killer, that one crime was committed with a .22 and another was committed with a .38, and then you can add those together in certain ways, and if you add it, 38 plus 22 is that's 60, right? And then 38 minus 9, 31. There's some numbers that match up into Gareth Penn's theories, because he's all about like mathematical signatures, and these things are hidden in there. But everything in this book says that Paul Stine was shot once in the head at point blank range with a 9mm semi-automatic. Some people also have a theory that the Zodiac Killer intentionally used different guns. This isn't multiple killers, that all these differences are very simply and easily explained, but this theory about not using the same 9mm is that the Zodiac destroyed everything from each crime scene. That's how he didn't want to get caught. Like after Lake Herman Road, destroys the gun, the .22 caliber firearm that he used, as well as maybe burning his clothes, destroying the shoes that he wore in some way. And we don't know 100% this is an unsolved case, but that is something that you guys have written in the comments section over the past couple months. Like, a couple people have said stuff like that. One guy said that he thought that the Zodiac Killer destroyed the guns after each event, as well as the Lake Berryessa knife, and somebody else said they thought that he did everything, like, as I said, burning the clothes and destroying the shoes. So with the murder of Paul Stine, you might have also heard that there were witnesses to this crime. They saw people leaving the... 3 people saw somebody leaving the scene of the Stein murder. And we're going to see 2 descriptions of the suspect that are not in perfect harmony. Let's look at the first one here. White male in his early 40s, 5 feet 8 inches tall, heavy build, reddish blonde, crew cut hair, wearing eyeglasses, dark brown trousers, darker navy blue or maybe a black parka, dark shoes. Suspect should have many bloodstains on his body and clothing. Suspect may also be in possession of the keys to the yellow cab, and possibly his wallet that belonged to the victim. Suspect is armed with a gun, last seen walking north on Cherry Street from Washington Street. Okay, that's one. Then there's another police report here that talks about perhaps a better sighting of the Zodiac Killer, because this is the one that was observed by Officer Falk, who was, well, the famous story of how they're going to the crime scene after the Stein shooting, and the APB, the All Points Bulletin, was talking about a Negro male adult, is what it says here. They thought they were on the lookout for a black man, but a white man walked past them. If every single Zodiac documentary mentions this before, I don't think we need to harper down too much on this. But I would like to read this entire page. This is from page 280. Let's just read this section of the report, and it's from Armstrong and Tosky. I respectfully wish to report the following: that while responding to the area of Cherry and Washington Street, a suspect fitting the description of the Zodiac Killer was observed by Officer Falk walking in an easterly direction on Jackson Street and then north on Maple Street. The subject was not stopped, as the description received from the communication was that of a Negro male. When the right description was broadcast reporting, the officer informed that a possible suspect was seen walking on Maple Street into the Presidio. The area of Julius Kahn Playground was searched, and that had negative results. The suspect that was observed by Officer Falk was a white male, 35 to 45 years old, about 5 feet 5 feet 10 inches tall. I messed up on the most important thing. White male, 35 to 45 years old, about 5 feet 10 inches tall, 180 pounds, medium to heavy build, barrel-chested, medium complexion, light-colored, possibly graying hair in the rear, may have been may have been lighting that caused the effect. Gray cut, wearing glasses, dressed in a dark something, blue waist-length zipper-type jacket, navy or royal blue, elastic cuffs, and a waistband and a zipper part way up. I mean, those are some big details to have recalled for just seeing this guy for like a split second. Brown wool pants, pleated type, baggy in the rear, may have been wearing low-cut shoes. Subject at no time appeared to be in a hurry, walked with a shuffling lope, slightly bent forward, head down. The subject's general appearance, to classify him as a group, would be maybe of Welsh ancestry. And let's just stop right there because an enormous amount of things to unpack. So you have these two observations after the Stein shooting. You have three people who saw the Zodiac from quite a substantial distance. Then you have this closer encounter with Officer Falk, and then the composite sketches that you see of the Zodiac killer, the famous ones, that is, or perhaps the more reliable ones, come after the Stein shooting. But the descriptions here are of a white male 35 to 45 years old, and the other one says early 40s. Now, this is quite contradictory to some of the other claims that have been put forward in these police reports here in Zodiac Just the Facts. Mike Michaud thought that the Zodiac was around his mid-20s, and I believe Brian Hartnell said that he thought the Zodiac killer was around age 20 to 30, judging by the voice alone. Remember, Brian Hartnell is at Lake Berryessa, and he's seeing the Zodiac killer behind the costume that he was wearing, so he didn't even see the Zodiac's face. Cecilia Shepard saw the Zodiac's face and was able to say, okay, yes, he's a Caucasian male and he has dark brown hair. You get a lot of descriptions of the Zodiac's hair. Firstly, the reddish brown, then you see your dark brown, blonde, and this even says light-colored hair possibly graying in the rear. But I'm really glad that they pointed out that the Zodiac is in Presidio Heights and he's walking down a city street after dark. The street lamps could have affected the observational findings here. I think that's very important because, well, if you're looking at a single person who committed all of these crimes, let's take the group murder theory, multiple killers theory, thrill kill club, Zodiac hoax theory, let's take all of those off the table. If you're dealing with one single killer, how old is this guy who committed the murders of Paul Stine and Darlene Ferrin and Cecilia Shepard and David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen? How old is he? Is he 20 years old? Or is he 45 years old? I'm noticing something that's really quite different. And a commonality after the Stein shooting is they're saying that he's either early 40s or age 35 to 45. So that is something that I definitely tend to lean toward. And I said very clearly in the episode that I did talking about the Zodiac killer suspect McDuff, who would have been age 23 at the time of the Lake Herman Road murders. I used to think that the Zodiac killer would have been much younger, like early 20s, thereabouts. But then over time, I began to think that the Zodiac was perhaps, I mean, this description after the Stein shooting nails it. 35 to 45 years old. I would say mid 30s to early 40s. And I also am really leaning toward this for the Zodiac killer's height. 5 feet 10 inches tall. I mean, okay, maybe 5'9", maybe 5'8", you could get away with that. Maybe 5'11", 6 feet tall, you could get away with that. But when someone's going to be proposing a suspect that's 5'7" or 5'6", or you're going to go in the opposite direction. When someone is proposing a suspect who is 6'1" or 6'2", I think that those are out of the range of the Zodiac killer. So, with these descriptions here, that is just my take on the subject, and trying to estimate what this would have been like if you had experienced these things, like seeing this guy. I think that this is highly, like, it's a reliable description, or it's pointing us in the right direction. I mean, I definitely do tend to agree with it. But this will also come up in other pieces of Zodiac literature. Some people will say that the original description from the witnesses states that they saw somebody who was 25 to 30 years old, and that appears to be somewhat of a misinterpretation, because after the Stein shooting, there is that famous composite sketch, right? I mean, the most famous Zodiac composite sketch. So what happened was, and I learned about this from Richard Grinnell of ZodiacCiphers.com, they attributed an age to the sketch. Like, that's like the estimation. It's the age attributed to the sketch, 25 to 30 years old. That does not come from the witnesses. We've just read off what the witnesses have said. Early 40s, and another one says 35 to 45 years old. Okay, so you will hear that, though, at some point, whether you're reading a Zodiac book or listening to a podcast. People will say that the witnesses after the Stein shooting saw a 25-year-old. And Richard has deduced that this is most likely because of those other witness descriptions where Brian Hartnell is saying that he's hearing a voice that's 20 to 30 years old, or Mike Mageau said maybe the guy's like in his mid-20s. You have to remember about Mike Mageau's encounter with the Zodiac killer. Some guy exited a car at Blue Rock Springs on the 4th of July, which is rather close to the time now, and then he's approaching the car with a very large flashlight, one that has a handle on it. He shines it in the window. Mike Mageau is sitting down. He's blinded by a flashlight. He did not get any clear descriptions. And forget Mike Mageau's credibility. I simply don't think that he was able to properly observe the Zodiac killer. He's blinded by a flashlight, and some guy starts shooting a gun at him, spraying him with bullets. And a bullet goes through his jaw and tongue, and he's in an enormous amount of pain. I simply don't think that he had any credible observations of the Zodiac killer. When it comes to the Zodiac killer's biometrics, Lake Berryessa is a great way to judge the Zodiac's size, height, maybe physical appearance outwardly, but of course they did not see his face. However, though, there is this line about how there's this barrel-chested guy who's walking down the street, slightly bent forward. He has the shuffling lope, doesn't appear to be in a hurry. I mean, barrel-chested seems to be a commonality among the Zodiac suspect sightings. And this is why a lot of people don't accept any of those things, like the thrill kill club theory. They're like, in the descriptions of all the shooters, whether it's Blue Rock Springs, Lake Berryessa, or the Stein murder, you have someone who is maybe 5'8" to 6 feet inches tall, so 5'10", right in the middle. That's another reason why I think that the Zodiac could be 5 feet 10, 5'10" and a half, thereabouts. So you have someone who has that physical description. You also have someone who is described as bulky, barrel-chested. Maybe they're a little bit large, but not overly fat. So you have this 5'10" guy who is very large, but not fat. Maybe he's barrel-chested, beefy. Some people say built like an offensive lineman, but he's not like outwardly flabby or morbidly obese, and he's most likely in the range of 200 to 220 pounds. This even says 180 to 200 pounds. That could be closer, actually. I mean, we could even say that. I mean, 180, 190. But I think, though, around 200 or 220 pounds. So all of this stuff is lining up with a single perpetrator. So when I was reading some of these descriptions about the murder of Paul Stine, I was forced to challenge a lot of the things that I had believed about the Zodiac killer, and I'm going to say some of this in the AMA section, where it says that the Zodiac did not move the bodies of the victims, because a lot of people have these theories that they're going to put out there about how they think this murder is connected to the Zodiac killer. They think that the Zodiac was responsible for this type of sexual assault or this type of other illegal activity. But the fact of the matter is, for the majority of the cases, the Zodiac did not move the bodies of the victims. The exception is the murder of Paul Stine, when the Zodiac is fumbling around in the taxicab, taking Paul Stine's keys and wallet, as well as a piece of Paul Stine's bloody shirt. And if you look at the image of the shirt, you can see that it has been cut from the backside and has been cut in a rather neat rectangle. A lot of the time, I would get, or I guess I should say frequently, I would receive this question: was Paul Stine's shirt cut or ripped? Because ripped seems like something that would be done very hastily, whereas if the shirt was cut with a knife, then that seems much more premeditated or calculated, because some people think that the Zodiac took that piece of Paul Stine's shirt not to mail it in with the letters, but instead to wipe down the taxi cab. And the Zodiac definitely did wipe down the taxi cab, but then the shirt was mailed in with the letters later on. But because of how neatly it is cut, I think that the Zodiac wanted to do this intentionally to mail the shirt in with the letters. Whatever he was using to wipe down the taxi cab with, I think was just something that was thought of later on, or that wasn't the sole motivation for cutting that piece of Paul Stine's shirt. Now, as far as moving Paul Stine's body goes, now the witnesses said they appeared to see the Zodiac cradling Paul Stine in his lap for a second while he's stealing these items like the car keys and the wallet. Well, I don't think that's happening because just reading this police report, the overwhelming reaction that I had was that what the Zodiac is doing is he's taking the items, but he's not cradling Paul Stine in his lap. Instead, Paul Stine's body is tipping over. He was shot in the right side of the head by the ear, and then the Zodiac is pushing him to the floorboards. I think that's what was really happening. He's pushing the body toward the floorboards of the car so that blood wouldn't get on his clothes, because they're saying that, put out this APB on this guy who should have blood all over his body. In reality, I don't think the Zodiac would have had all that much blood on his pants because he pushed Paul Stine's body to the floor of the car. Then blood wouldn't get on his pants, so when he's walking out, he's not going to leave any major trail of blood. And I also have something to share about this, because they said the Zodiac is wearing a parka-like jacket. Now, at Lake Berryessa, in these police reports here from Zodiac Just the Facts, it says that the Zodiac was seen wearing a dark-colored windbreaker, maybe navy blue, royal blue, some type of dark-colored windbreaker. And my response to that was, I thought that, oh, well, this guy must have had it in his pocket. I used to carry a windbreaker in my pocket, because you can scrunch it up and shove it down into your pocket, especially when you got like baggy cargo pants or something. It's really easy and it's really helpful when you got those misty days that aren't really rainy and so on. I think you can get the idea. You just pull it out and you put it on. So when the Zodiac was exiting Lake Berryessa, as well as coming in, but also when he's leaving, he can just take off the windbreaker and slide it into his pocket. And as far as wearing this parka-like jacket, is it possible at all that the Zodiac killer took off the jacket and was when he shot Paul Stine, he's getting blood spatter, blood transfer, and then he can just clean up his face in a second and then throw on the parka jacket, which would have had far less blood transfer from shooting a person at point blank range, and as well as if he's touched Paul Stine's body at all when he's pushing him to the floorboards of the car, then he's going to hide the blood evidence in a lot of ways. That's very methodical. There was this one comment that had been written on a Zodiac forum that the murder of Paul Stine is the least sophisticated. He just killed a taxi driver. And then I read off something that Thomas Horan had sent me and like one of our correspondences, and he said, the murder of Paul Stine shows the highest level of crime scene awareness. And which one is it? I definitely have to agree with the latter. The highest level of crime scene awareness. All of these methods that are done not to get blood on his clothes so he can just walk away and not get recognized. I mean, imagine if someone's walking down the street with blood all over their clothes. I don't care if it's at 9:55 p.m., 1 o'clock in the morning, clear as day, dark of night. People are going to notice some guy, if he's walking past them, with blood all over his clothes. So there's a lot of crime scene awareness, but also this goes to show you that the Zodiac is someone who is probably a pure sociopath, maybe a born psychopath, and that was something that we also discussed in the correspondences, and it's because of this, treating Paul Stine's body like an object, and the ability to walk away in such a calm and collected fashion. You heard that description. There was not an ounce of hurrying in this person's nature. Like, to do that, the person must have been a sociopath. Whoever shot Paul Stine, whatever Zodiac theory you have, he was someone who didn't have much of a conscience, if any at all, probably none. So that's something that I would also have kind of in conclusion after looking at these police reports for Lake Herman Road, Blue Rock Springs, Lake Berryessa, and the Paul Stine murder. If there is a single perpetrator, he's probably 5'10", 5'10" and a half. It may be age 35 to 45. I do agree with that. Someone who has had, I guess, just a lot of rejection from society, definitely from his parents. That's where it all begins. But someone who is a recluse, someone who isn't involved with a lot of social circles, someone who is a rejected lover. He wants to be with people. He's very jealous of the people who are at lovers' lanes or just couples. David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, Mike Mageau and Darlene Ferrin, and Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard. The Stein murder is an enormous change from that. It's an enormous deviation because there's no woman present. Some people think that Paul Stine was murdered because the Zodiac wanted to prove that he could murder a male. I mean, Mike Mageau survived Blue Rock Springs, and Brian Hartnell survived Lake Berryessa, but then the Zodiac wanted to prove that he could kill a man just as easily as a woman, even though David Faraday was already murdered. I mean, that's just speculation. That's just theorizing that other people have done. So another motivation for the Stein murder is it could have been relevant to mathematical signatures. That was Gareth Penn's theory, that he wanted this to all line up with a series of angles, and Michael Cole talks about this in a different way, that the Zodiac wanted to commit a crime in a certain area, and he wanted some crimes to be committed by gun, some by knife. Maybe there were also additional crimes that were committed by rope or by fire, which we learned about from the Zodiac Halloween card, as well as the car door at Lake Berryessa. And it's also lining up with astronomical events, and, well, I'll talk more about that on the AstroPsych 400 channel. But in conclusion, I think there are major commonalities among all of the crime scenes. The witness descriptions aren't varying too much. What's really different is the calibers of the guns, or that different handguns are used at every time. You have a 22, two different 9mm, and then at Lake Berryessa, the Zodiac may have been carrying a 45, so said Brian Hartnell, and that relates to seeing a series of images. Okay, did it look like this gun? Did it look like that gun? Oh, it looked like that one. Well, that was a 45, and the knife that was used to commit that crime, the only confirmed Zodiac incident that was committed by knife, although some people do believe that the murder of Sherry Jo Bates in 1966 was a genuine Zodiac crime committed by knife. Now, right now, I would like to end this part here. Thank you to everyone who has listened to this book discussion, and thank you to Tom Voigt, who provided me with my copy of Zodiac Killer, Just the Facts. And I would like to move on to the AMA, the Ask Me Anything. And first, I would like to give a shout out to Jacob Wilbers, who has been corresponding with me at BlackBoxOnlineRadio at AOL.com. Anybody can write the show there. You can also download the show for free at LaunchPad 1, formerly known as LaunchPad DM. A link is in the description box. But Jacob and I have been talking about a show called The Bible Geek, and before you're just like, I don't ever want to hear about politics or religion, this is definitely Zodiac focused, because the first question that Jacob asked me was, can you write out a summary of this idea that the Zodiac wrote in the 408 cipher, that those who I have killed will be my slaves in paradise, or in more direct terms, when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and those whom I have killed will be my slaves. And he had heard on this channel that I talked about how that was from Filipino folklore traditions. I first learned about that from Thomas Henry Horan when I was reading The Myth of the Zodiac Killer and listening to him in interviews. But it is mentioned in the police reports in Zodiac Killer, Just the Facts, that that belief system, that if someone kills somebody, when they die, they'll be reborn in paradise, and that person will become their slave. So Jacob sent that in to a podcast called The Bible Geek to get a response from, like a show that's discussing religious scholarship and traditions and looking at it from an academic perspective. And when I listened to the episode that the guy put out, I think his name is Richard Price. I only heard 2 episodes of the show, which Jacob shared with me. There's a very small segment on it, or else I would just I would give you guys a link, but he only talked about it for about maybe 3 minutes, and he didn't say anything about the Filipino connection. What he talked about instead was there was a belief in the religious traditions of ancient Egypt that if somebody like a pharaoh were to kill somebody, or that when the pharaoh dies, the slaves will also go to him in paradise. Let's forget the word killing. That's what's more important is the pharaoh's going to be reborn in paradise, and that his slaves from this life are going to be with him in paradise. So that is something that he said. Maybe the Zodiac is trying to be a pharaoh-like individual, but really not going into a lot of detail on the subject. So then I got a second message from Jacob Wilbers, who said something though about this guy Richard Price and those comments there. A lot of listening to him, meaning the guy from the Bible Geek, is why I discount Thomas Henry Horan and that Joe guy. Horan just rubs me the wrong way. He seems like a grifter. To me, Joe seems like a nice guy. He used to be a military police officer, and I think he misses the power of that position that it affords you, and being the good guy. They just scream torturous reasoning to me. I'm going to keep trying to find out anything more about the Filipino connection. I'm starting to think that some cop working on the police report was misinformed. Alright, this email goes on for a while, but let's look at that right there, because there's a lot here. Firstly, that Joe guy is, of course, Joe from the Zodiac Killer Insight series, who believes that Gareth Penn was the Zodiac Killer. Now, I have to be honest with you guys, when I read this line, Thomas Henry Horan just rubs me the wrong way, he seems like a grifter, I laughed a lot harder than I should have at that. It was one of those kind of kind of like one of those really unnecessary awkward laughs, but that was okay, not I'm gonna retain my composure right now. And no, I don't think Thomas Horan is a grifter, the author of the Myth of the Zodiac Killer, the Great Zodiac Killer Hoax series, the guy who thinks that there wasn't a single person who committed the murders in 68 and 69, that these were unconnected crimes that somebody wrote letters taking credit for, and the explanation in the past for the Stein murder was that it was a taxicab robbery gone wrong, or somebody committed the murder of Paul Stine to rob the taxi, and they did. They stole his wallet. It was a real robbery. The Zodiac, or whoever committed the murder of Paul Stine, did commit a taxicab robbery, but like, was this the same guy who committed these other murders and wrote the letters, or was it this just a taxicab robbery committed by somebody named Hesham Zayed, a Jordanian immigrant who worked in a restaurant nearby? So, no, I don't think Thomas Horan is a grifter. Instead, we have to always remember that he is a media player. Prior to the Zodiac hoax series and the Myth of the Zodiac Killer and doing his show, the Stones Unturned podcast, he was a music journalist. He was a political blogger who had 200,000 subscribers, which is not an easy thing to do. He was a stand-up comedian. So he's very familiar with how to make an impact in the world of media, how to make a splash, how to get people to listen to you. And that's what I think it is. And he presents his material in that way, wherein he's trying to draw a crowd. That's perhaps the better way of phrasing it. He knows how to draw a crowd. But I don't know about you guys. That means nothing to me. I don't care about any of that, any type of media persuasion tactics. What I wanted to know was, is his theory correct or not? Did he get the right answer to the Zodiac Killer mystery or not? And I said very clearly after the Lake Herman Road and Blue Rock Springs episodes, I can't disprove him, and I'm disappointed in myself for that. I can't just go through the police reports and be like, oh, here's where he went wrong. Normally, I can with other theories. I also can't disprove the single perpetrator's theory and be like, no, this was not a single person, here's why. Many times when I've done Zodiac Killer book discussions on this channel, I have been able to say those things. Like, I've been able to show people how there could be blatant or incorrect misinterpretations. There could be just genuine cases when someone has misunderstood a particular passage, or they're like, oh, they're trying to interpret this evidence, but they're doing it in the wrong way. Like, their observations are inaccurate. And I'm not right all the time, but like I get ideas for stuff and I try to connect dots. No, I can't say the hoax theory is wrong from reading these police reports, and I can't say the single perpetrator theory is wrong because the Zodiac killer, if there was a single guy, was really good at messing with evidence. He was really good at being confusing. And some people think that the murder of Paul Stine was just that. It was meant to show criminal versatility. It was meant to confuse the authorities. All right, everyone's thinking this guy's targeting lovers' lanes. Now let's do something different. Everybody's watching out for couples. Now let's do something different. And that's it. This 5'10", 35-year-old, whatever, he went about his crimes that way. So I'm really kind of underwhelmed even with myself that I'm not able to get a direct answer. As far as that guy Joe, as I said, Joe hosts the Zodiac Killer Insights series, which you can hear on YouTube. I've interviewed both Thomas Horan and Joe. I think they're both genuine believers in their case. I didn't know that Joe was a military police officer. I knew that he spent time in the South African Defense Forces as a Portuguese linguist. He's originally from Portugal and lives in Australia. And I have exceptions to both of their theories that Gareth Penn was the Zodiac Killer or the Zodiac hoax. So I just invite you to listen to both their channels, The Stones Unturned and the Zodiac Killer Insight series. And I would like to go on to the next comment, which was also sent in to the email here. And this is from David Payne, who wrote and said, "Hey Ned, just stumbled across the video below on YouTube. It seems convincing. Not sure I buy the stuff about tattooing teeth, though. Apologies if you have already seen this. If you have not, it's called Arthur Lee Allen Identified Zodiac Killer, posted by ZNN Zodiac News Network. Thanks, Dave." And I much appreciated from David, who wrote into the channel. So I watched that video. And the long story short is, that one is going to try to link Arthur Lee Allen to a murder that took place 40 years ago. And I'll just read off the description. And this is going to be talking about somebody who is known as Valentine Sally. You know how sometimes they have like a John Doe or a Jane Doe case, and they get a different type of name? Like Marcia King was unidentified for many years, and she was known as the Buckskin Girl. Most people are just known as John Doe or Jane Doe. But I was even watching America's Most Wanted as a kid, and the first time I learned about this was that there was this girl who was found, and she had a tattoo of a daisy on her body, and they referred to her as Daisy Jane Doe. And I didn't. That was how I learned about what a John Doe and a Jane Doe was, actually, from America's Most Wanted. Big thank you to John Walsh. But yeah, there was a murder that took place with someone who was given the pseudonym Valentine Sally. And I'll read the description from ZNN. Breaking news: Arthur Lee Allen identified by the only eyewitness in the Arizona Valentine Sally murder case. Patty Wilkins has positively identified Arthur Lee Allen as the man who was with murder victim Valentine Sally, recently identified as Carolyn Eaton. The murder occurred 40 years ago. Upon identifying Allen from a lineup, Wilkins' first words were, "It's him. I've waited 40 years to see that face again. It's him. It's him." So that's their thesis to the episode, that Arthur Lee Allen, the prime suspect in the Zodiac Killer mystery, also committed another murder, and that was of Carolyn Eaton, who was known as Valentine Sally for a long time, until she was identified through forensic testing of sorts. I did watch the video in its entirety, more than once actually, and I am so I don't even know if I have the correct word other than it's borderline outrageous, like what they're doing in that video. I don't think they have an ounce of credibility, because if I can give you 100% what I genuinely believe, they have a composite sketch after this crime took place. Because they saw somebody, this witness, Patty Wilkins, saw someone with the girl who would go on to be known as Valentine Sally Carolyn Eaton. They have a composite sketch of a guy who was wearing a cowboy hat, and I don't think he looks anything like Arthur Lee Allen. I think they just found some guy with rounded cheekbones and a low-hanging face, and I mean, that's what the sketch is of, and they're just like, hey, there's some way somehow they can match this to Arthur Lee Allen. So I think that not only is it a stretch, it's nearly impossible that Allen is in the composite sketch. No, crazier things have happened. Oh, yes. But I don't believe it for a second that Arthur Lee Allen committed this murder of Carolyn Eaton. I mean, people try to connect so many crimes to Arthur Lee Allen, particularly the Santa Rosa hitchhiker slayings. And going on this composite alone, as well as the eyewitness sighting by Patty Wilkins 40 years later, insufficient evidence. That's just my take on the subject. I would definitely like to learn more about the disappearance and murder of Carolyn Eaton, who was known as Valentine Sally for many years. Okay, though, you may have heard, though, one additional line in David's email when he said, I don't believe the stuff about tattooing the teeth. Now, what they did was the guys who do the show, ZNN Zodiac News Network, it's a channel you can watch here on YouTube, they did some forensic investigating, and they claimed that the Zodiac killer was tattooing messages on the teeth of people, and they're zooming in and they're showing things that look like a cartoon face or a little squiggly face that has been tattooed on the teeth of victims. I also will entirely refute this, saying I don't believe that these things are accurate, because the Zodiac did not do things to the victims post-mortem, with the exception of moving Paul Stine's body in the taxicab so he could steal the keys, the wallet, maybe another piece of the shirt or something like that, finish cutting off the shirt and so on. But one of the reasons why the wallet could have been taken is the Zodiac simply wanted the police to think that it was a taxicab robbery, so it would give him some time to get away, or they're not going to think, hey, this is the Zodiac killer. No, they're going to think, oh, it's a taxicab robbery. But anyway, that is just something that I've thought about over the years. But the Zodiac didn't tattoo a message on Paul Stine's teeth, now did he? Or even if there is something that looks like a tattoo on Paul Stine's teeth, how would you prove that it wasn't a dentist or something? I mean, I I don't believe that there are any type of post-mortem things done to any of the bodies, because that's not what the Zodiac killer did. He snuck up on people, he fired some gunshots, and he disappeared. He had a conversation with Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard, and he stabbed them, and then he walked away. So the Zodiac didn't mess with the bodies post-mortem. Someone once also shared with me an interview from some guy named Fillmore Slim, who was a pimp who worked in the 1960s and 70s, and they were even talking about how one of his girls was murdered by the Zodiac killer, and he said, yes, all the blood was drained from her body. I also do not believe that was a Zodiac killer victim. Anything that involves intense modification, mutilation, or abuse to the bodies post-mortem, anything. I'll just cover it right now. I don't believe that's genuine Zodiac activity. Alright, so going on to our next comment. This is on the episode about Michael Cole's book, The Zodiac Revisited, Volume 2, and it's from Justice, who writes, what do you think about the possibility that there was a separate killer and letter writer, with the killer not being 100% honest with the letter writer about how many victims there were? And by 100% honest, I think you mean that the Zodiac was actually murdering more people than just the 5 canonical victims, but someone else is writing the letters, and that person is only aware of 5 victims. These things like Arthur Lee Allen committed the murders, Don Chaney wrote the letters, and Arthur Lee Allen's actually down in Arizona murdering Valentine Sally, murdering Carolyn Eaton, committing the Santa Rosa hitchhiker slayings. And Don Chaney doesn't know anything about that. He's just writing the letters for the 5 canonical victims, and as well as the murder of Sherry Jo Bates, the murder of Nikki Benedict. All those crimes are attributed to Allen. I've talked a lot about the partnership theory or the separate letter writer theory, but it's the first time I've heard this one that, the letter writer might not have had knowledge of all the crimes. I think that there's a very strong piece of weight for a separate letter writer, and that would explain a lot of things about why it's so hard to track down DNA to a single person. Or it would also explain why you could build a case against somebody, but always have these giant plot holes in it, or something just won't add up more than one person. Now, also, I want to talk about the multiple killers theory for a second. It's not impossible. Absolutely not. It could have happened that way. I mean, that's just it, though. I can't prove or disprove it only by the police reports in Zodiac Killer, just the facts. I did ask you guys a challenge question, though, and I said, though, in the episode on Michael Cole's book, The Zodiac Revisited, Volume 2, that the Zodiac referred to the victims as kids. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye. That. And I said something that Michael Cole had written in his book that if the Zodiac is referring to the victims as kids, is he someone mid-30s to early 40s, or is he somebody in his 20s, or even late teens like Louis Myers, who was a suspect in his teen years at age 17 and 18? And that was just a question I threw out to you. And here's a response from Classic Chevy Cat, who says, as for the term kids, it had been my experience that all ages use that. I had friends age 16 call the rest of our gang kids. Okay, I think that that's fair. And I even brought up some examples when I've heard people who were my age refer to me as a kid. Sometimes, or maybe at least once in my memory, someone who was very much younger than I was still referred to me as a kid. He's like, Ned, you seem like a cool kid. I'm like, I'm never talking to you again. And I didn't. But, on to our next comment here. This one is from Mad Dr. Freeze, who says something on the episode about the book, The Zodiac Killer, Just the Facts that we were talking here. Ned, I waited to listen to this cast. Facts mentioned are right over the years. And the movie JFK can send your mind tripping in a way, and the acting is David Ferry. Now, do you mean something like, are you trying to draw some connection to David Faraday in that? I mean, that's just kind of how it ends. The actor is David Ferry. I mean, are you trying to say there's some type of JFK Zodiac connection? That one, I don't really have much of a response. I would have to say no until I can see something um, convincing to another way. Kelly Gable has a comment on the C32Z13 solution episode when he says, Paradise is spelled with a C on purpose. Like I've said a million times, it's a clue to his identity. And one person that would agree with you there is Drew Beeson, who is the author of the book Sighting In on the Zodiac Killer, and his suspect is not Arthur Lee Allen, but Donald Lee Cheney. Maybe Allen had some limited involvement, but the paradise that Kelly was talking about is Paradice. The Zodiac liked to use this word. Don Cheney had a relative named Mary Martha Paradise, who spelled her name that way, Paradice. And Dragar says, I think that Thomas Horan just wanted to ruin the party for everyone. As I said before, ruin the party or not, I don't care. I wanted to know, is his theory correct or not? The same way that I would want to know about anybody else's theory, whether it's that one about Gareth Penn or Don Cheney or Tom Voigt's theory about Richard Gaikowski. Which one is correct? I mean, even if it's one that I wouldn't find to something like I've said 100 times, I don't think Ross Sullivan was the Zodiac Killer. I don't think any of these Ross Sullivan theories have any merit to them. But if I'm wrong, I'll accept it. I just want the truth. Oh, we have a comment from Playtime who says, excellent discussion, BBOR. Faraday and Farron were killed on a Friday. Shepard and Stein were killed on a Saturday. But is that just another coincidence? Well, maybe. I mean, there's definitely some alliteration going on there. But I would like to thank everybody who has listened to this episode here, and one more time, we've reached the conclusion of our book discussion on Zodiac Killer Just the Facts, which has been assembled by Tom Voigt, and also you can download this show for free at Box Online Radio. That's the name of the show, of course, at LaunchPad 1, and there's a link to that in the description box. And you can also follow the show on Facebook, Black Box Online Radio. Anybody can write the show at blackboxonlineradio@aol.com. And I will probably put out some type of publicity thing for this new astrology thing that's coming out, AstroPsych 400. Really, what I want to do is I want to put out the first video like in the BBOR format where it's going to be like a series of images and I'm narrating it, but I'm also going to try and do something unbelievable, which is appear on camera. I mean, I do that on the Instagram journal, the bonus podcast that I'm always rambling on about. So you can listen to it in two different ways, and I'm going to see how people respond to that, and then decide if I want to complete the series like a podcast with images or complete the series appearing on video. But I do want to emphasize that Black Box Online Radio is not going away. AstroPsych 400 is just meant to be a series of 12 videos about the 12 different zodiac signs. I mean, that's what I'm aiming for. But I also have a book coming out later this year called Killer on a White Horse, which is going to be a novel, a murder mystery. And Colonel Reb gave the suggestion, why don't you call it The White Horse Killer? And the reason why is The White Horse Killer is the name of a fictional serial killer that is mentioned in the novel, which is the central focus of the mystery. And I wanted to give the title a little bit more flavor. And I said something though in a previous episode when I said I thought the title was a little bit lame, even though I named it myself, Killer on a White Horse. The only reason I said that was when you say Killer on a White Horse, it sounds like you're saying kill her on a white horse. But I think I'm kind of sold on this one. It's kind of just the name that the project ended up connecting with, for me anyway, but that will be coming out later this year. However, it will only be released electronically, so it's a great time to get your smartphones and tablets ready, and I'll do something much bigger for that once it's actually in the post-production stages, if you will. Thank you to everybody who has listened, liked, subscribed, followed the show on Facebook and Instagram, and just listened to me ramble on about true crime and other subjects. Alright, I will see you guys in the future, and for now, see you on Instagram for the bonus podcast. Until next time.